Good afternoon and welcome to the Living Well radio program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also find us online in a few different places. Be sure to check us out and listen live at katb.org. Also, follow us on our Facebook page at Living Well Radio, and you can also download us now as a podcast available on iTunes. So we do look forward to connecting with you. And my name is Cammie, joined by my fanning herself over there, Betty. How you doing, Betty?
Oh, my goodness. I am hot.
Why are you hot?
It's only, 92 in here this afternoon?
We are just sitting here hanging out in the sauna.
We're going to call it our spa day or something.
Okay, not a sauna, but a spa.
Not a sauna. No, there's too many of us to be in a sauna.
This is true. Let's clarify. Listen, we have got a great show prepared for you here today. We are joined by Jimmy and Kathryn Stewart. Jimmy is the Director of Evangelism and Church Development for the Alaska Baptist Convention, and he's joined again by his wife, Kathryn. We are so glad to have you guys here. Thank you for being willing to come on Living Well.
Thank you for having us.
And being willing to endure this sauna-like condition.
Feels like where we're from the old South. So.
Does it? You're quite used to it, huh?
It actually does feel like Arizona, though. The years that I lived there, it was really hot. So it does feel like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that I'm enjoying it, but
Right.
the heat, but enjoying the company.
We can handle it for a 30, 40-minute time period, can't we, Betty?
Of course.
I think it's
We're
doable.
women.
There
That's
is
right.
a reason we moved up here.
Well, we
were
can't.
getting a tan, though.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we had an air conditioner on, but it made too much noise, so we turned it off. And we've got the door open, so our listeners may hear some extra noise, but that's okay.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to this is the way we roll. We'll just kind of
yep.
all
It is what it is.
the humanness involved and all that good stuff.
This is real.
Yeah.
We're being authentic today, Cammie.
Yes, there's that word. Betty really likes that word. Listen, we are just going to be listening to Jimmy share with us. He has had literally a life-changing experience happen, and he's going to share that story with us today. And I don't know any of the details of it. I know you know a little bit, Betty, but you've invited him here today to just share with our listeners and encourage them through that. And just seeing you here today is just pretty awesome. I appreciate you guys coming. So again, thank you. And I want to just ask you, Jimmy, just right off the bat to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your wife. How long have you been in Alaska? Kids, the 411 on the Stewart family, if you will.
Oh, great. Thank you. We came to Alaska in 2001, again, like I said, from the hot, muggy South, from Georgia. And I was having a great career down there with the Georgia Baptist Convention, traveling around the state, helping churches in their evangelism. And God called us to come take this position in Alaska. So we moved up here with 3 kids. At that time, they were 12, 10, and 9. Is that right? And so we just enjoyed so much having the years of growing the kids up here and having them experience Alaska. And then, of course, they do like kids in Alaska do. They kind of go out to school and they left us. Now, we do have one here, and that kind of ties into the story. One part of the story is that kind of one of our dreams was to have a cabin in the woods. And so through a lot of friends, a lot of help, we ended up building up near Talkeetna, which is about 100 miles from here, a little cabin out in the woods, kind of remote, and just had a great place we could go and be with the family until all the family left. But this summer, or I should say last summer, a year ago, we had that great event when all the family came back in. And just a little bit more about myself. I'm a very active individual. So is my wife. She's been a personal trainer with the Alaska Club, and we were last year celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And we're celebrating it actually a month early by going to, it's a World Personal Training Fitness Conference that they hold various places, but this year it was going to be in L.A., and Kathryn was going through classes for continued education, and I was there to have fun. I love fitness. I love things like, P90X and Insanity. I was an open racquetball player and at the top of my game and really at the top of my fitness, which God used mightily in my life. And we were there, had a great time. came back, and our family joined us from down south. My middle son and his wife, and then my daughter came with her boyfriend. And we knew that he was already going to ask her hand in marriage at some point, and we weren't going to tip that off. And, of course, we were kind of thinking that this trip might be the time that he does that, and we'd already given that permission for that to happen. So, anyway, we all go to the cabin, having a great time. And Kathryn, my daughter and her boyfriend, my oldest son, had to go back because they were going to go visit some other friends, and they only had one day to do that. But my middle son, his wife, and another friend, his wife, and 2 young children were there at the cabin. And this is when the event that happened that changed my life forever. We were constantly smelling something that we thought maybe it was just muddy feet or something like that. It's kind of a swampy, musty smell or something like that, would you say?
Yeah, and the boys were four-wheeling, so I just thought it was the punky feet smell from the boots in the dirty water.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we made reference that, this was going on. The lights in the cabin started flickering, and we had since it was a remote cabin, we didn't have electricity, no water, so that means outhouse at 20 below. And but it wasn't. There's summer times there wasn't that temperature, and I decided I would investigate what was going on. We bring in propane tanks, and we have the house plumbed with copper tubing to go to propane lights in each bedroom, and also to supply a propane stove. Anyway, make a long story short, I went into our crawl space, which is a big crawl space, 4.5 feet, which for me, if you could see me, that means I can walk around. And now, if you know Daryl Nelson, he'd be bent over double. Okay,
Right.
he's 6'7".
He would have more than that one bandage on his
Yeah,
forehead.
that's exactly right. Yes, he really would. So anyway, I went, and as a result, I did not know this about propane. We have understood this. Propane sinks, and this is a very enclosed, cement poured.
And it expands, too.
Yeah, it sinks, but it also expands mightily, and it was in a poured foundation, so there wasn't ventilation for it to get out. And when I was walking the 30 feet from the hatch to the other side of the cabin where the line comes in from the propane tank, I was just swimming and just being washed and bathed in propane. My whole body was. I had no idea. And when I got to the other side, an explosion occurred, and I was standing right in front of it. A couple of gentlemen that just helped me put my cabin back together, and brought up a team to do that, bless their hearts. He found where my footprints were, and then he found where I landed. And then they found my glasses up against the back wall, another 15 feet away. And how I survived the explosion to begin with, because this was not just a small explosion. It rifled through the cabin. We have big 8-inch D-logs that were forming the first floor. And if you know anything about those, they were spiked together by big timber lock spikes, and it just peeled out these logs into
4 feet away from the wall.
4 feet away from the wall. It just blew out. It knocked out windows out of their casings and sat them down. We had
Shattered them.
Yeah, we had one window that was shattered, and the other ones were just pushed out onto the front porch and just sat down. The 2 windows upstairs, and the fireman told us later, if we had not opened them up for ventilation, we could have imploded the house. It would have just gone up and come back in. And the roof did lift up and kind of set a little off, and so they had to bring in heavy equipment to reset the roof and reset the logs and things like that. But the screens in the upstairs windows were blown out 35 feet. I got up off the ground, and I looked at myself, and my shirt, and there was nothing left but a collar. My pants were ripped up. I had shoes and socks on, and thank the Lord for underwear. I had underwear on, and those were the areas that were protected. And the rest of me was burned, and I was burned 77% of my body, 3rd degree mostly, a couple of places 2nd degree that turned into 3rd degree. And we didn't know at the time how serious it was. It was just dramatic. And I remember later, this didn't happen instantly that I remember this, but I got up off the ground and I remember thinking, I've just ruined our vacation. And then I ran and started yelling at the hatch, is there anybody hurt? Anybody hurt? Now, at this point, I was in shock, adrenaline, and the burns actually burn away your nerve endings and things, and I didn't feel anything. My son came yelling back in, Dad, where are you? Dad, where are you? And I said, anybody hurt? He says, no, we're all right. Where are you? And he brought me up out of the hatch, and we went through the front door, and I kind of jumped off the front porch, just kind of looking around. And I noticed that they were looking at me. I mean, looking at me, just really inspecting everything about me. And they said, come on over here. One of the gals was training to be a police officer, and she said, Mr. Stewart, you need to come over here and sit down on this trailer. And they called. Here's God was already putting in place miracles. And they called 911, and in this remote location, we don't get reception very well. And immediately we got a secure connection. And the second miracle is that they called the Talkeetna EMTs and the first responders and all that, and they came out. They were there in 10 minutes, which for an area that broad was just a miracle. They just happened to be there, I guess. And so they called us back, which was really another miracle. And we got the phone call back, and they said, we're not sure where you are. Can you meet us out on the Parks Highway? So I got in a truck with my son, and we started driving out there. And I said, Stephen, starting to feel this.
Until that point, you had been in no pain?
No pain. And
Kathryn, where were you?
She was at home.
I had left just a little bit earlier with Caitlin and Justin and her boyfriend. They had an engagement, so I had to leave just a few hours earlier.
So she was actually back home, and she was kind of resting. And we drove to the ambulance. Right before I got to the ambulance, I told my son, my eyes, they're growing dark. I'm having a hard time seeing. And we got to the ambulance, and this is another miracle, and God just started touching people's lives. And this is the whole miracle process all the way through this, is how God has used this to touch people's lives. We got to the ambulance, and they started talking to me and saying, Mr. Stewart, we're going to put you out. And I was like, amen. I don't want to feel a thing. I don't want to know a thing. Put me out. But I started talking to the EMT and the other worker, and I was just saying, guys, thank you so much. Tell me about yourself. Started asking them some questions, and my son was there, and he could see the care that he had for me, and wanted to be in the ambulance with me but couldn't, and they were getting me prepped up to put me out. And I said, before you put me out, let me just pray. And listen, I have no idea why. I really don't know. I'm on minister mode, but I just wanted to pray. And I prayed for both the EMTs. I prayed for my family. And I just prayed for the doctors that were going to receive us. And then they put me out, and I'm on my way. They drove me down the Willow, picked up in a helicopter, and somewhere in between here, they started talking to Providence. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure the helicopter crew just said, told them my condition, and Providence said, we can't handle that. It's way too big for us. So they flew me directly to a jet and flew me down to Seattle to be at the regional burn unit in Harborview, which is fantastic. They did a wonderful job. Kathryn, I got down there about 4 a.m. and just... Go ahead, Kate.
So Justin came to the house and woke me up, and he had been called by Stephen 3 times. Go get Mom. We need to meet her at Providence. Dad's been in an explosion. The cabin is burned. And he called Justin 3 times, and Justin didn't believe him. And Justin said, "Oh, yeah, right, okay." And he was playing a video game. He thought he was joking. Finally, after the third time, Justin called Stephen, his brother, back and said, "You are joking, aren't you?" Stephen said, "No, I'm not joking. This is real." So Justin came home immediately, woke me up, and said, "This is an accident that's happened. You need to wake up. We need to, meet Stephen and go to the hospital." So I woke up and I got the kids all together. Stephen entered the house at that time, and I said, "First thing we need to do is pray." So we all got together and we just prayed. At that time, I thought the cabin had burned down. And so I began to pray that God would put the fire out, because there was a lot of fires going on last year at that time. And I was worried about all of the cabins around and all the animals, the mushers and the horses next door. So anyway, then we got the word that they were in Harborview. So I got on the airlines and made the first trip to the Harborview. And we got there about 4:30, I think, in the morning. No, you got there at 4:30. We got there at 11. Yeah.
So, well, tell them, Kathryn, what they did as you got there.
So Justin, my oldest, went with me because Stephen was going to go back and shore up the cabin, because if it rained, it was going to ruin our cabin. Because we didn't know how bad it was. I packed for 2 weeks. I thought, well, he's burned. Okay, I'll take 2 weeks worth of workout stuff. I'll work out while he's getting healed in the hospital. I had no idea how bad it was. And so we got there, and they took us into the ICU, and there was a shortcut straight to his room, because they put him in the children's side because they were so full. But the nurse, male nurse, Josh, who was just an angel, he took us the long way around and took us very slowly, because he could see we didn't understand how bad it was. And he told us, this is really, really serious. And his arms are hanging from the ceiling with gauze all around, because he has no circulations from the elbows up. And what else did he say? His head is really, really, really swollen. His body is swollen. We had to cut him. Should I tell all the details? The swelling was so bad, they had to relieve the swelling by cutting him all over. And that's when I realized, oh, this is really bad, because just cutting him like that would kill somebody. So I excused myself and called my son Stephen, and I said, forget the cabin, get on the next plane, come. And then I got in there, and I didn't recognize him at all. His head was really swollen, like really big, like a basketball or bigger. It was, and that's all I could see, because he was covered with gauze, and there were all kinds of doctors and nurses around him, and he was on a breathing machine. He couldn't breathe. And I was like, okay, Lord, we really need you. And so we let his office know, and we started getting the word out on the prayer chains. We need prayer. And that's when people started sending the word out. Prayer, we need big time prayer. And so the word went out immediately, and I began getting texts from all over, even England, immediately, that people were praying from all across the United States. And we ended up early on having hundreds of people pray, and that's what really saved his life.
Wow.
Life was all the prayers.
The doctors told Kathryn that the first 48 hours are very critical, and they really were just kind of watching. I was a 58-year-old man, and you take your age and you take the percentage of burns, and anything over 100% is not good. I actually saw a text the other day that somebody here got from a guy the day after. Actually, it was on Monday. It was the 25th, and he said that the doctors don't give him, more than a 50%. It's actually less than a 50% chance of living, and that's what they would say. But we actually had the privilege of talking to other folks, and I've heard from other folks. I just heard from a guy that was here for Fusion, and he was saying he knows a nurse in ICU that worked on me.
Really?
And she said, there's no way that guy's going to survive. Wow. No way. We've got friends here in town. One of the friends, her dad is actually a heart surgeon here in town, and he told his family, you guys just prepare. He's not going to survive, not with that. But God
But
heard
God.
But God.
those prayers. And day by day, my body responded to those prayers. And by the first week, they were saying to Kathryn, we cannot really believe this. We think we're going to take them off the breathing tube. And it just started escalating, and things started happening. I started having surgeries. Of course, one of the big concerns is infection. And
Wait.
go ahead.
First, they said, the first 24 out to 48 hours is critical. And that's the part that usually people with this kind of injury, that's when they won't survive. So they're really preparing me for him to not make it through those. So we were really telling people we've got to really pray for this, and then he made it through those first 24 to 48 hours, and they were just shocked. And then the doctors said, okay, what his body is going to go through now is it's the same thing as if a car was going 100 miles an hour for 24 hours straight
A day.
for 6 weeks in a row without a break. That's what his organs are going to be going through. Now, this is really, really, that made me realize they don't think he's going to live.
Even after the 48 hours?
Yeah.
They were
Yes.
saying that?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And I
48
said-
hours was just that initial period. And then for the recovery and all the surgeries and transfusions and everything I would end up going through, that's what they were saying.
And
His heart's going to be going that fast.
And I said, wait, he's got his heart rate's in the 40s, so he can do this. And he said, oh, the surgeon said, really? Okay, well, we'll see. Okay, there's a little bit of glimmer of hope. Like, I don't think he believed me, actually. And I said, he's an open racquetball. He's a player. He's in really good shape. He can play racquetball, doubles and singles for 2, 3, and 4 hours at a time. He's really in good shape. I think he can really do this. And plus, we have the Lord on our side, too. And then after he was doing so well, a week and a couple of days later, they took him off the breathing machine. And the doctor was floored. She was just saying, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but we're going to be able to take, he's trying to breathe. We're going to take him off the breathing tube. And nobody ever gets off the breathing tube this soon with these kind of injuries. I'm just blown away. And then they said, the next thing you need to know is that he will get infection. There's MRSA, there's staph, there's all these infections out there. Just know, prepare yourself, he will get infection. So then I became just like really
Determined
advocate of germs. We're going to not let any germs
the
in.
germ police.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Jimmy, were you coherent during this phase?
Yes and no.
Or
Well,
okay.
let's put it this way. I heard certain things. And
He was blind, so he couldn't see.
They stitched my eyes shut because my eyes the cornea has been scratched and from the flames and stuff. And I couldn't see, so I was just kind of out of it that way. And then they kept me on such high levels of drugs. And one of the things they wanted to do is for you not to remember all of the wound care, because daily they're going in and taking all the any kind of scabbing over of the wounds, and I mean all over my body. We just had some good friends here, and he came at the end of August to visit. And he said he sat outside of the room when they were doing wound care, and he said, Bubba, I just felt my heart was breaking for you. I could hear you in there and how much you were going through it. He goes, you did a great job. You just kind of moaned and groaned, and that was one of the things that I asked Kathryn. I said, did I man up? Did I cry like a baby? Did I yell and scream? She said, you were a gentleman. You did a good job, and you didn't, like a lot of things they heard from other rooms, but God's presence. And my wife, that's another incredible thing. She got to ultimately be in there when they were doing wound care, and I knew her presence was there. She was patting me, she was talking to me in my ear, taking me on guided tours, and we're on a glacier, we're going to go here, and we're doing, and it just praying and reading scriptures over me. The room Kathryn and we had some great folks from down there, around there, that have, we have connections with our convention and everything. And that's one reason we had so many people praying for us, is that we just had tons of connections all throughout the United States. But anyway, and that just led to little places in Kentucky that we've heard from, Louisiana, Missouri. I mean, all these little places I've never even heard of, and people saying, we are praying for you. We got over 900 cards and letters. Wow. And it was just amazing. But
so the Lord just really surrounded us with love and comfort, reassuring us, you are not alone. I'm here. And everybody just showed us how much they loved us.
But I want to credit, and one thing I do remember here is, because I don't remember even my buddy who came to visit, I don't remember that at all. My brother came, my best man in my wedding. I mean, we had so many people come and visit, and she had to keep a list because I had no idea. So I was coherent, but I was also delusional. I had some funny things that I told my kids that I was dreaming and thinking about. But the one thing I remember, a guy named Daryl Nelson on a phone call. This is, 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks afterwards, I get this phone call from Daryl Nelson. Hey, Jimmy, I got 800 kids who want to say hi to you, because I was not at Fusion. And he did a panorama. I couldn't see it, but she told me he did a panorama around the room, and I remember that. That encouraged me dramatically.
And they were all cheering, saying, hey, Jimmy, we love you. And he could hear it. And that's the only thing he remembers from ICU.
I do remember buying a truck.
For real?
I told my son one day, I said, Stephen, I really have messed up. We were financially ruined. He goes, what do you do? I mean, I can't even get out of the hospital, much less the hospital bed, really. And I said, I bought a truck. These are the drugs I was on. Good stuff, all right? And then I told him, I said, it's got wings. It's got propellers. And he finally assured me, no, Dad, you did not buy a truck. And I finally was, calmed down.
But there were so many opportunities to share the Lord with people. We, as he started to say, we put all the cards and a lot of the cards and letters up on the wall. Immediately, first thing I put scripture up. And then as the cards and letters began to come in, and somebody sent us hymns, and I put scripture, as I say, up on the walls all over. And as he started to say, someone there, the DOM there, the director of missions there, he printed pictures for us of the family and Jimmy. And so we put those up on the wall. And the nurses and the doctors saw all of those when they came in, and they were able to read all the scriptures and read the scriptures on the cards. And everybody noticed that God was there, and they didn't necessarily know what it was. And so they commented, wow, it's so joyful here. It's so peaceful here. You guys are awesome. And they put us on a pedestal, and we said, we got an opportunity to say, no. You're experiencing God. You're experiencing the peace of God that passes all understanding. And you can have that peace. We've got opportunities to share Christ with all of these people that came in the room. And the nurses were fighting to get in to our room and minister to Jimmy, work on Jimmy, as opposed to going in the other rooms where it was, such pain and heartache. So it was neat.
Go ahead. I know.
No, that's okay. I don't want to be out of time. Got so many things I'd like to ask you guys, but I do want to ask you in closing, Jimmy, to share with us. Well, it's probably obvious, and I could gain some conclusions in your own word. What attribute of God do you feel like you learned more about in going through that?
Wow. What attribute of God? I've never really had anybody phrase it that way, but there's the attribute of his healing. Jehovah Jireh, not Jireh, Rapha, who absolutely had his healing hand on me. That God who is sovereign, who is purposing this and taking this. I don't believe one minute God caused this. It was an accident, but he was using it for his glory. And we got hours of stories to tell you what God did and how we met people and got into people's lives. And it's truly amazing. Is it? I tell people, this year has been amazing. Even in the midst of all this, This has been one of the most meaningful, joyful years.
We've
And
gotten to pray. We've gotten to pray with so many people,
Oh,
so
my
many
goodness.
hurting people. I
So
got
many.
to pray with the people in the ICU waiting room that were hurting and so desperate, and share Christ with people. It's just been so
Just
exciting.
amazing.
And even today, just in the grocery store talking, it's just really exciting
Giving
that the
people
Lord
hope.
opens doors up.
Hey, you know,
Exactly, giving people hope.
here's the thing with a face like this, they can't see me on radio, but I am definitely scarred up, and it's just a magnet. People want to know, and I get to testify. I'm alive because of God. It's only a miracle. I had a buddy in the racquetball group. He said, Jimmy Stewart, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. You cannot not believe. He said, because of you, I'm in church today. My wife and I are in church today. And, I mean, God's just touching lives, and I'll take that any day. Praise
Yeah.
God.
Gonna continue.
Could we ask you to come back another time?
Sure.
So we could talk longer.
We'd love to. Love
Okay.
to.
Thank you. I don't know what else to say. If there was more powerful and, more words packed with gratitude, I'd use them. But I just want to thank you so much for coming today and just sharing your heart and your story.
Thank you.
No doubt it will
Thank
be
you for
used.
having us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for having us.
And that is another Living Well program. And once again, you can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. And you can always find us and listen live at katb.org. We'll see you next Wednesday.